Wednesday in Simpsonville, South Carolina, and the weather is up in the mid 50s today, so we're starting to warm up from yesterday's very cold temperatures and yesterday morning's 20-degree temperatures. We're in Exodus chapter 20. Most people know what's contained in Exodus chapter 20. It's the revealed will of God. You know, lots of times we say we just really like to know the will of God. All we got to do is go over to Exodus chapter 20. These covenants, these commandments are still the will of God. Jesus said himself, I didn't come to destroy these. I came to bring light and spirit to these things. So these are still valid today. Now, the first thing that I want to do, because we only have 5 to 6 minutes in these devotions, is to just give you an overview of the Ten Commandments. The first thing that we need to understand is that they're divided into two sections. The Ten Commandments has 4 that deal with our relationship to God. 4 that deal with our relationship to God. The next 6 are our relation to fellow man. Let me just review those with you real quickly. Depending on which use of the Ten Commandments you use, have no other God before me, no graven images or idols, not take the Lord's name in vain, and keep the Sabbath holy. Those all deal with our relationship to God. And then we have 6 that deal with our relationship to fellow man. Honor your father and mother. Be sure that we do not murder, that we do not commit adultery, that we do not steal, that we do not bear false witness, and that we do not covet. That means to want something that somebody else has. So we have 6 that deal with our relationship with fellow man. We have 4 that deal with our relationship with the Lord. Now, it's really interesting because if you've ever seen a list of the Ten Commandments, you will find that all of those lists are not the same. Why not? Well, first of all, the Talmud, the Jewish writing of the Ten Commandments, takes the first phrase in that section of Scripture, verses 1 through 17, and says, I am the Lord your God that delivered you out. And that's their first commandment. The Catholic Catechism version of the Ten Commandments combines the first 3 that deal with having no other God before him, having no graven images, and not worshiping anything else. And they combine those and then separate some of the coveting clauses that are in the Ten Commandments. The Lutherans separate the coveting as well and make the 10 by separating the coveting section of the thou shalt not covet, and combine some of combine some of the first commandments about no other gods and no idols. Calvinism, of course, mainstream Protestantism, have the 10 Commandments as I've already shared them with you. No other gods, no idols, not taking the Lord's name in vain, keeping the Sabbath being the first 4, and then honoring your father and mother, not murder, not adultery, not stealing, not bearing false witness, and not coveting. So you can see we have some slight variation of the 10 Commandments. So if you look at a list of 10 Commandments, it may well depend upon what denomination put those out for both the Jews and the Catholics and the Lutherans, as well as the Calvinistic church, have separated them a little differently, but not completely differently. So what is our relationship to God? Have no other gods before me. Gods are not just idols or images. They can be anything that takes the place of God, anything that's more important in our lives than God. Our cars, our boats, our houses, our mates, anything that takes the place of God. No other gods before me. Nothing else more important in our lives than God. No idols, no graven images. We shouldn't worship any graven images. And again, that can expand to things like cars and boats and houses and things of that nature. We don't want to make those idols in our lives. And not taking his name in vain. We should always have the reverence and respect and awe of God because he is the Lord. And that's the very first phrase that you'll find in that section of Scripture in Exodus 20. He reminds the people of Israel, I am your God. I am the Lord. How many times have we seen that phrase repeated over and over again? In our relationship to fellow man, obviously needing 6 instead of 4, it's a little more difficult to deal with fellow man than it is to deal with God. That is, it's not always easy to honor your father and mother, for sometimes fathers and mothers make terrible mistakes, and yet God still says they are our father and our mother, and we're to honor them. To not murder, we know that Jesus brought spirit to that. He says, if you want to murder somebody, just afraid to because of what the law would do to you, it's just the same as if you'd committed it. Same way with adultery. He said, if you look at a woman with lust, you might just about as well have committed the act because that's something you wanted to do, but were fearful to do it. And then not to steal. Sometimes we think about this as major theft, cars, boats, houses, embezzling millions of dollars, those kinds of things. But, anytime we take anything that doesn't belong to us, that was not given to us, it basically is stealing. Now, it may not be consequential, it may not be a significant theft, but in God's eyes, he doesn't grade on a curve. Either you steal or you don't steal. And bearing false witness is a really important thing. Sometimes we bear false witness by actually saying something that's not true, but many times we bear false witness by failing to say what we needed to say. And then not coveting, not wanting to have something that somebody else has. Lots of times we lust after things that people have, houses, boats, cars, mates. But God tells us we shouldn't want other people's things. Nothing wrong with wanting nice things. But when they become a coveting, when they become a wanting to have somebody else's, it becomes very unhealthy. And when material things become our all-important desire, it's a very unhealthy thing. So we'll look in more detail on the 10 Commandments, and we'll take a deeper look at each one of the commandments over the next couple of days as we look at the Exodus chapter 20. But God had met with Moses to say to the people, here are some simple rules that I'd like you to obey. Think about all the laws we have today in our land as it relates to driving, as it relates to dealing with waste products and throwing away the new fashioned light bulbs and all of the rules and regulations that we have about everything. And then think about how simple God kept it for us. 4 as they relate to him, and 6 as they relate to fellow man. And nothing's changed. It hasn't had to be modified. It hasn't had to be embellished. Very simple rules that God desires for us to be pleasing in his sight. 10 Commandments. Also notice very, very clearly, all but 2 are thou shalt nots. And only 2 are something other than that. Keeping the Sabbath and honoring your father and mother. You say, well, that's a lot of nots. We should not do this and do that. It's only 10 out of the millions of things we could do that he says are okay. So the next time you think about God's commandments and you think about, oh, those are a bunch of restrictive things, think about all the things that he allows us to do, and only 10 that he tells us not to do. Only 4 that relate to him, and 6 that relate to our getting along with others. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.